do 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 Summer Web Series. Summer Web Series. Summer Web Series.
Hi, welcome to the second episode of our Summer Web Series. This episode we are going to be talking about healing justice. And I know it's just me here right now. Unfortunately, Ray and I are no longer in the same physical space, but don't worry, we will both be showing up in this video and in the videos to come. Okay, so healing justice is a topic that I could talk about for hours, that we could spend literally a lifetime exploring. And so we're not going to do that now. We're just going to try to capture some of the essence of healing justice. We're going to start by telling you how I first was introduced to healing justice and why healing justice is in our name, because it's pretty important. So I was first introduced to healing justice at the Allied Media Conference, which is a fantastic conference that happens every year in Detroit. I totally recommend it. At a place called the Healing Justice Practice Space. And this space, it was a place where, in its own words, quote, a healing justice practice space is an all-gender, all-bodied, inclusive, and accessible space for practicing and receiving healing that is built in partnership with social justice movements and sites of political action, end quote. And so for me, this meant that in the middle of this long conference where, as a person with chronic pain, I was starting to flare up, and having, it was very draining for me, there was a space where I could go and get free acupuncture, I could get all sorts of other healing modalities, and I also was able to meet all these other people who were interested in healing as a political, type of work, and to be among so many disabled folks. It was really awesome. Okay, so when I went home from this conference, I immediately looked up the Healing Justice Practice Space, and I found this list of their principles that really spoke to me, and so I wanted to share them with you. It's a little bit long, but I promise it's worth it. I'm going to read them now for you. So these are the principles from the Allied Media Conference Healing Justice Practice Space 2012. Principles and guidelines. We begin by listening. We are people of color, Indigenous people, disabled people, and survivors of trauma, many genders, ages, and classes of people, and we are committed to leading the work of building healing justice at the ANC. We do this work to lift up and politicize the role of health and healing in our movements as a critical part of the new world we are building. We honor individual and community agency, intuition, and innate wisdom, and therefore honor people's rights to make decisions about their own bodies. We understand that health and wellness should be determined by the individual or community receiving care, and for many of us, this includes the reality of disability, illness, and harm reduction. We accept and encourage individuals and communities defining health, healing, and wellness for themselves, and not based on normative models of healing. We center the genius and leadership of disabled and chronically ill communities for what we know about surviving and resisting the medical industrial complex and living with fierce beauty in our sick and disabled bodies. We say no to the medical industrial complex's model of cure or be useless, instead working from a place of belief in wholeness of disability, interdependence, and disabled people as inherently good as we are. We live in countries that deny healthcare access to people based on economic and identity status, and we must build alternative structures for giving and receiving care that are grounded in community and ancestral traditions and in the values of consent and equality. The Healing Justice Practice Space is part of that work. We believe that medicine is media, and we work with the understanding that how we heal ourselves is directly related to how we see and interpret ourselves and the possibility for transformation. We are aware that the body does not live forever, and we honor death as a part of the cycle of life. Okay, so fast forward a couple months to when I first had the idea of the library, and I was trying to think of a name for it, and Healing Justice Lending Library came to mind. And putting healing justice in the name, I really thought of it as a promise to myself and to everyone else that we would stay rooted and grounded in these healing justice principles, and that the work of the library going forward would always be accountable to this growing movement of healing justice.
Healing justice as a term and as a movement was originally conceived at the U.S. Social Forum in Detroit in 2010. This is a space where activists come together to work to create a more just world. And so the following story comes from the reflections of Clara Page from Insight, who was at the gathering. So in Clara's reflection, which I have here, she says, "We wanted to create two spaces of political and practical application of what we have named healing justice, a framework that identifies how we can holistically respond to and intervene on generational trauma and violence and bring collective practices that can impact and transform the consequences of oppression on our bodies, hearts, and minds. Through this framework, we build two political and philosophical convergences of healing inside of liberation. One was the U.S. Social Forum Healing Justice Practice Space." And as a side note, this is actually the precursor to the healing justice practice space that Sylvia was describing before. Clara goes on to say that in our political and practical application of healing justice, we also created the People's Movement Assembly, a 4-hour interactive session to imagine new strategies and unlikely alliances towards building action. The People's Movement Assembly, or the PMA, we held was for health, healing, and liberation to politicize the role of healing inside of liberation from the perspective of healing justice organizers, grassroots healers, and integrative medical practitioners. The questions we began grappling with at the PMA included, how do we redefine what it means to be healthy that is not profit-driven or derived from one type of body and one type of wellness? What are our shared understandings and memories of healing practices as tools of resistance and organizing? How will we sustain, renew, and uplift healers and traditions that are being co-opted, displaced, replaced, and criminalized? The questions that were brought forward at the PMA are the ones that we at the Healing Justice Lending Library are grappling with as well. And that's why it's been so important to us to create a space where everyone can kind of come together from different communities to discuss what healing justice means in their activism and in their work towards liberation. And so we at the Healing Justice Lending Library really wanted to honor the work of the activists from the U.S. Social Forum in Detroit and make sure that we're firmly anchored in a politic of collective liberation. As always, if you have anything that you would like to comment, any questions that you have, or any videos that you might want to see in the future, please feel free to contact us. You can comment on this video, contact us through Facebook, or email us at hjlloberlin@gmail.com.